Welcome to the Soberish Uprising. My name is Holly Crevo, a former heavy drinker who started a Soberish Uprising almost 2 years ago, and everything in her life has changed. At the Soberish Uprising, we tell stories of finding freedom from alcohol on our own terms and paving our own way to sobriety. Today, I am joined by the lovely Amanda Patton, who is a software consultant, a mom, a dog rescuer, and host of the podcast, I Have 12 Questions. So excited to learn more about that. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we were connected. It's through a mutual acquaintance.
Yes.
Who's like, you guys are both in this space of podcast around sobriety, sober-ish, and wanted us to connect. So thank you for taking your time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd love to hear, I have 12 questions. Love it. Tell me, what made you start that podcast?
I'm going to try not to be too wordy. I was an English major.
We do a lot of words here.
Being concise is not my forte. I'm coming up on a decade of sobriety. And I was noticing that my needs were changing and my curiosities and what I was being offered in my current sobriety recovery circles was not that I had outgrown it, but just like I had this curiosity and I wanted to know more.
Yeah.
And you sometimes can get kind of siloed and walled off from other ideas and other ways of doing things just because this thing has been working. So like, this is what I'm going to do. So in the back of my mind a few years ago, I was like, I need to start a podcast or a group or start going to more secular meetings. I need to, spend more time at the Zen Center and the Shambhala Center. And I was just trying to really get into the root of whatever spirituality even is. And that transcends addiction and everything else. It's just on such a different level. But I was always busy and I was like, I'll do it later, whatever. Somebody else will do it, And then I lost my pop to cancer in September of last year. And sorry, I'm going to cry, but it's still pretty fresh. But watching him go through that, and he was just very strong and young and healthy. And then he was gone. And it was do it, do everything, live your life, do it now, stop making excuses. Your bills are paid because there's always a reason. Well, I need to do this. And I'm too busy with that, whatever. And to watch someone I love die the year he was going to retire and know that he was never going to get to go do all the stuff that he had put off. It was just that final fire that was I am here to help people. I am here to share my story and to learn from other people's stories. And, within a few weeks, I had my first episode out. So yeah, it had been on my heart and in my mind for a long time. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where to start. And then that was just one of those life moments was you never know how much time you have. You better get cracking.
Yeah. Oh, what a great message to you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know how you were going to do it. You had all the good excuses, right? They were legitimate reasons to not, but it's I don't want, this is my soul is telling me I need to do this.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, what a great, beautiful tribute to your dad as well, to know that you kind of spurred this passion.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to see somebody to realize that could be you, that your life could get snuffed out early and you could be thinking about all the things that I was going to do. Right. And, and part of recovery is being of service. So that's what I considered this to be. But I'm like, how much time is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take me to learn all the platforms? I was being way too practical.
Yeah. Well, you said you're a software consultant, right? We shared this at the beginning, very analytical, very type A. So I could see we're I don't know what this is going to look like. So I don't know if I want to do it yet.
Exactly.
Well, and I love you shared, I'll read what it says on your LinkedIn, which I'll link how to get a hold of you in the notes. But you said participant, advocate, and evangelist for recovery in all forms. Sans labels, dogma, stigma, and shame. And I love it so much. That's part of why I've started this on my own. But tell me, as somebody who has been completely sober for almost 10 years, why is that important to you to do recovery in all forms?
Fundamentally, as a person, it's important to me across every single area of life. removing whatever that is, the shame, the religiosity, the fundamentalism, the monotheistic approach, the I'm better than you and you don't think like I do, so you're wrong. And any type of anything that smacks of that, which seems to always focus on the underdog or the marginalized groups or people that don't have voices. There's this stigma attached or the shame attached to things like addiction or poverty or being different or so I have seen people destroy their own lives and the lives of others because of their inability to feel welcomed, loved, accepted, seen. And a big thing with addiction is that a lot of that we are taking a lot of that pain and we're directing it inward. Yes, we're hurting people indirectly around us, but a lot of that comes from shame. And, so whether it's a church teaching hateful things or a school or an AA meeting, for example, that to me is just, there's no place for it, and so when I would see things in traditional meetings that were very churchy, I'll just say that, right? We're good and they're bad. And we do it this way and anything other than this is wrong. And this is the only way to get sober. And if you don't do it like this, you're going to die, right? It was just and it kind of scares people. And then if you pull people in, I saw people who came in who really wanted a solution. They wanted to belong. They wanted a new blueprint for life. They wanted to understand how to deal with their emotions and not have to numb with alcohol or food or whatever it is. And they would hear some of that dogma and they were out the door.
Yes.
And that person could die or go to jail or do whatever, have some consequence. Do you know what I mean? And so that's really what it is for me, is like, I make no apologies. I am not ashamed. I do not feel bad about it. I did not ask to be addicted, but it is part of my story. And for me to raise my hand and welcome the shame and the stigma and the judgment and the trash talking and bring it on. You know what I mean? Like bring it on. But my point in doing that is because hopefully it lets other people, also feel safe or comfortable. Maybe not to do it publicly, but at least reach out to me personally on LinkedIn or whatever and say, where should I go or who can I talk to? That's what it is for me.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And like you said, those people that left, those ones that didn't feel seen, that was maybe too much for them. Yeah. You're just saying like that AA's belief and that full message around sobriety was just too big of a leap for certain people. Is that what you saw?
I don't think it's necessarily the message of AA. I think it's how some people interpret the message. Right? The step works, the rules, the whatever. It's just like a church, right? Like you might have a message of love at the end of the day, but that congregation and that leadership may interpret that in a very hateful or rigid or exclusive way, which to me isn't helpful. If all aren't welcome, I don't want to be there, right? There can be no exceptions for that. And addiction doesn't care about your sexual orientation or the color of your skin or what you do for work. Like it's happy to kill you regardless of who you are. And so to me, it's a safety issue. And a lot of people, sorry to keep bringing up church, but a lot of people have major, major trauma around church stuff as from childhood. There's a lot of guilt, shame, blame, things that happened in the church with people in the church that were potentially traumatic. So when you walk into meetings and you see all this God stuff, that can really turn a lot of people off,
Yeah. If in their experience, they've never felt that like love of God, it's felt as a punishment, their perception, it's always our perception. Right. But that piece.
And it's just like anything else in life. Some meetings are very healthy and inclusive and wonderful, and they just want you to get sober, however that looks for you. And then there are other meetings that are not like that at all. And it's like a franchise. You have to shop around. You have to find your people, Fundamentally, the message is the same, but the way people interpret it can be very different. And if you're coming in and you're shaky and you're withdrawing and you're sad and you have these consequences, you're very vulnerable, emotionally. And so it's important that you walk into a space where people are just like, you're good. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to, just, that's just really important to me. I was lucky enough who had that I had a sponsor that did that for me.
Yeah.
And it gave me that spaciousness to like settle into some form of a higher power. And she was like, here's all you need to know about God. You're not it. Like you're not God. And as long as we can agree to that, we're good. I'm like, okay, we can start there.
Yeah, totally. I totally believe that. I 100% believe I'm not God. Yeah. Well, and that space, because you said, when people come, that vulnerability, and there's shame, there's guilt, and there's sorrow, and there's fear, like you may have one shot to provide a safe place for somebody.
That's right.
And then just one opportunity, and it could just be somebody's like, I got you. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like for you, but I'm providing you a space to figure that out.
Yes.
And, tell me, you said you had this, tell me maybe the moment, said it's been 10 years in December. When was the moment that you chose sobriety? Or like, do you remember, like, did something happen? Like, when was that moment that you're like, this just can't be it anymore?
I know our stories are different, mine and yours. And I love talking to people because it's a spectrum, just like everything else. There's a full-blown spectrum of experiences, and you can call it what you want. What matters is what was your experience, and like, was it working for you anymore, type of deal. And, I did not start drinking or using pills and drugs, or I didn't really until I was 29. I had drank before. I had used drugs recreationally here and there, but it had its time and its place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was never an issue. I never thought twice about it. And then I was 29. Someone very important in my family died. I was going through a divorce. It was just the perfect storm of, I always thought I was this really strong, well-adjusted person, but really what I was a workhorse. I was a single mom working full-time, did undergrad, did grad school. Like, I'm just like a machine.
Yeah.
I can do anything, but I can feel nothing. I could not deal with my feelings. I didn't know how to manage stress. I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know how to slow down and like talk about my feelings. That is not something we, did in our house. Like, feelings. What? Like, get over it. My God, And so it's really weird because, my mother's father, whom I never met, he was dead at 41. He drank himself to death. We've got alcoholism and other mental health challenges throughout our family. But I was, educated and had a mortgage, and like, my life was great. How could I be an alcoholic? That doesn't make any sense. And the fact that it started so late, but when it started and I was off to the races, within 6 months, I had a DWI. And then I think less than a year later, I had another one. I got arrested a total of 4 times. The only 4 times I've ever been arrested in my life, all of them were, I was under the influence of something. Yeah. The next time was a PI, and the next time was a destruction of property, which really should have been a DWI, but whatever. None of that was a deterrent. Attorneys, going to court, having to go to these stupid AA meetings and all these alcohol classes. I had a breathalyzer in my car. None of that was a deterrent, because it just, I don't know. I was like, I have an attorney. I'm fine. Like,
I can pay it off.
It's fine. Yeah. It's no big deal. And then it was a big deal, and judges started to get real irritated with me, and I got sent to a couple of treatments and all that. So I say all that to say that a normal person would look at even the first time and be like, this is not working, but not me. The more trouble I got into with alcohol and drugs, the more I pushed it. The more I was determined to prove that I can control it and that I can handle this. And one night, and mind you, I started going to AA meetings because a judge made me. So I'd been in and out, getting my card signed, going to meetings, but I wasn't trying to get sober. I didn't think I had a problem. Why would I need to get sober? And then one night I looked at myself in the mirror and I did not recognize that person anymore. And I'd been awake for 2 or 3 days arguing with ex-husband number two and making great decisions with men also, obviously. And I just said something like, God, if you're real, please help me. That's literally what I said. And then I went to a meeting. That was on a Saturday. I went to a meeting that following Monday. And I was ready, finally. I was finally ready. And the stars aligned where I had a sponsor who was really tough on me, but also like gentle in the areas where I needed it. Like the God stuff. But that was it. It was very interesting that they say that kind of normal people will adjust their drinking to fit their goals, and an alcoholic will adjust their goals to fit their drinking. And that's what started to happen. I started to lower my standards, all these goals of, and I was there physically where my daughter was. So I thought that made me a good mom.
Yeah.
I'm providing, I'm here. I'm literally not here. Nobody is home. Right.
Right.
So, drunk or on pills all the time. But I had lied to myself so much that I finally had to go to a place where I could be honest, like really, really honest about my stuff, And for whatever reason, I was ready then. And thank God I lived long enough to get in there.
Yeah.
But,
before too much long-term permanent damage, right? Like there could have been bigger consequences than you already. When I think, there's two things that I think, we both talked about, our journeys are definitely different, right? We're the way I am sober-ish, you're completely sober, but I love these conversations. And I think they're so, so important because you don't have to hit, I hit at my point that a little bit of a rock bottom, right? They just look differently. But two things you said that were so relevant. What I felt was like looking at the mirror, not really recognizing that person, right? Just being like, that's not who you are. That's not what's important to you. And then also that's really interesting, like adjusting goals to your drinking, right? And it can either be big or small, right? For me, it was like, oh, I'm going to get up and go work out. And then it's like too much drinking. You're like, I'll just do it tomorrow. Or whatever, those so it could be big goals or it could be little, but like that adjusting to the drinking. So those, again, our journeys are totally, totally different, but those two still resonated for me at the level I was at.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this weird cycle of like self-loathing. You make yourself these promises and you continue to break them, and the shame. And then it's just this, to be honest, I think too, something bad would happen and then I would be cool for a while, right? I'm going to just not drink at all, or I'm just going to drink less, or I won't take as many Adderall today, or I tried to do all this. And it's insidious like that. It would sort of let me get away with it for a while. And then out of the blue, that some really bingy situation would happen, or I would say something to where the next day I'm just like, who all do I have to go apologize to today? And to me, it's like breaking up with a toxic ex for real. Like there's this part of you that misses that. And the truth, what it's going to be, and it's always going to be that way, but somehow, and I've been in that situation too, where I've returned to people, places, and things that I knew were good for me. So, it just took me a while to realize that alcohol, mind-altering substances as a solution to life's problems, is not going to be sustainable. I believe alcoholism is a progressive disease. That's what I was taught. And so it's never getting better. I've been sober almost 10 years. And if I went out and drank right now, it's been progressing this whole time. Right. I'm not going to start again at the beginning. I'm going to start where I left off, which was in a pretty bad spot. Yeah.
You don't get to go back to like 29-year-old Amanda who was,
No, the fun times on the boat where there were no consequences. Like that's the highlight reel my brain loves to play for me. Remember this? It was so awesome. Because I'm such a worrier and I'm so type A and I'm naturally just a very anxious person. And when I would drink, I just was like, So nice. Oh my God. And I don't get to have that now. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, of course, there are times where I would like to take a load off, blow off some
Mm-hmm.
steam. And instead, I just have to sit with the discomfort, which is not my
Yeah.
favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
But it,
Well, and talking about that, like, sitting with discomfort, how else do you kind of find that calm, that zen? Like, how do you do that now that you are not drinking?
um, so many things. It is like a full-time job trying to keep myself,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it's just an awareness. I
Mhm.
meditate every single day. I write a lot.
Mhm.
I help other women in recovery.
Yeah.
When I'm too caught up in self or I'm ruminating or doing whatever, I need to get out of myself and turn my attention to who I can help, who I can be of service to, whether it's a
Mhm.
person, animal, the earth, whatever. Um, Exercise is huge.
Mhm.
Sleep, hydration, eating clean, drinking teas that help with dopamine and serotonin and just really understanding and then being really aware of my moods.
Yeah.
We do a nightly, a 10th step inventory every night in the program. And that is just a daily inventory of how it went and what's going
Mhm.
on. And did I make any messes? Do I owe anyone an amends? So it's just this daily accounting of where I was emotionally, and if I need to clean anything up. Not to beat yourself up, but just to
Yeah.
keep the awareness, at the forefront. And I think trying to make sure you're not going to be perfect all the time with all
Mhm.
those things, but to me, it's scaffolding. It's just, it
Oh,
all
yeah.
kind of goes together. So if I feel wonky, I've hopefully been putting in my insurance to protect myself. And we have sayings
Mhm.
like pause when agitated, call and ask someone for help, talk to your sponsor, go
Mhm.
to a meeting. Like there's just take a walk in nature, um, hug on your animals.
Yeah.
So it's all pretty wholesome stuff. And to be honest, Adderall and Xanax were a lot quicker, and alcohol.
It's the truth on some things, right?
And I feel better and I have no problems in the world. And this
Yeah.
is
And
but
then the next day you're like, "Oh shit, they're still there and they're worse."
and there
That did
was,
not help. That did
now I
not help
have,
like I thought it would.
yeah. So I will say that, feeding an addiction or keeping up an unhealthy drinking
Mhm.
habit or whatever, it's a lot of work. It's a
Mm.
lot of work and planning and like covering your tracks, and it becomes sort of this thing that you have to
Yeah.
manage, right?
Yeah.
And you have to keep secrets, and like it just keeps. And recovery also requires a lot of effort, a lot of work. And
Mhm.
so, do I want to be putting all that effort into something that's going to destroy my life, or do I want to be building residual, effort
Yeah.
into something worthwhile? So yeah, today I choose sobriety, but it literally is one day at a time because
Yeah.
I'm one decision away from,
Mhm.
you know, so I need to be
Yeah.
aware of that, stay aware of that.
Absolutely. I love that too. Like it's going to be work either way. So what do you want the outcome to look like?
Right.
It's really interesting that like it was 2 weeks ago. We had to reschedule this because we were having work done on our house. But I went for a week where I like really wanted to drink like every night. And I was like, what is going on? But I was like hormonal. So everything felt a lot worse, right? I was overwhelmed at work. I tweaked my back. So I wasn't really working out. My diet was a little off. I was like, I wasn't doing my morning meditations consistently. I wasn't doing my nighttime. I was like, oh, because there's not like one magic pill, for lack of a better word, for this,
Right.
right? But it's like you said, there's all these things that I'm like, that makes me feel like my best self. And I'm like, oh, it makes sense that. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, like go for a really long walk, even though you can't go to the gym. So all
Yeah.
these pieces, and it's trial and error, and it's data, and there's no judgment. You're gonna figure out what it is that works for you. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was really fascinating because I was like, what is going on? Like, I
Mhm.
was like, oh yeah, I'm not doing all the things I need to do to make myself feel good.
Yes. Yes. That's it. And that it's that awareness of checking in with yourself and like
Mm-hmm.
knowing how I'm feeling. I remember when I first went to treatment and they were like, how are you feeling today? And we had to pick off this like feelings wheel. And I was like,
Mm,
all of them? I
yeah.
couldn't identify feelings, because when they would come, I just wouldn't deal with them. I would either work more, or I had a kid to raise. I was busy. I was always distracting myself from feelings. Give me something to think about, or give me some stuff to do, and I'm all over it. But feelings. And so now it's like that awareness of, I feel really sad today, or I feel despondent, or I feel really ecstatic today, knowing how I feel, but then also like why, and then also understanding it's not permanent, whatever it is.
It's that, yeah.
Because, I think that sometimes you do feel like it's going to just be forever, that you're going to feel that way. And whether it's PMS or I'm in perimenopausal stuff right now for the last couple of few years. Oh my God. Talk about feeling like you're just not okay from one day to the next, when your hormones are all over the place. And I'm on hormone replacement therapy. I'm taking all the supplements. I'm doing all the things I can do. But it's frustrating when your body is sort of working against you. But it is what it is, right? Like, I'm a woman, and this is part of it. But it's the awareness. This isn't going to last forever.
Right.
For one thing. And in AA, we talk a lot about HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Be very careful when you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And I think we should add on your period or going through menopause.
And that would be helpful. Just an extra P in there somewhere, helped or something. You're like, why do I hate everybody right now? Why do I want to like murder my spouse? You're like, oh, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
You're like, yep, right on schedule.
Yeah. Okay, cool. A couple days we'll be fine. We'll be totally fine in like 2 days. Yeah. Well, and it's so true. And I think it's that piece. And for me, it was that awareness. And again, I'm in this sober, so I do allow myself, a drinker. So every once in a while, it was like, I don't want to make a choice out of it to have a drink because I'm overwhelmed or I'm tired or I'm mad, or, you know what I mean? That didn't feel like an empowering choice. If it was like a nice rush, whatever, but it was like, this isn't like having a drink on a Tuesday with cereal isn't going to feel good. Like, so checking in of like why that is.
And I think that's the thing too, of like really understanding. I interviewed this lady, Jean McCarthy. She's written several books and has the podcast, The Bubble Hour. And she was talking about that too, of like, why do we do it? Do we do it because it's 5 o'clock? Do we do it because we are bored? Do we do it because we're at brunch and all of our friends are drinking? But then later you start to realize, she was basically saying that it's a source of comfort. We're seeking comfort. There's something going on with us where we want to feel different. We want to be comforted. For me, whether I'm feeling sad or moody, but also if I'm feeling super happy, super excited, that's really dangerous for me, because if I feel really, really good, I kind of want to feel just a little bit better.
Yeah. Or let's celebrate it with something to feel
never
really
enough.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so just being aware of, how all of that works, and then asking the question, what's underneath that? Sometimes it is just hormones, or maybe I'm just stressed out or haven't been sleeping well, right? Sometimes it's just physiological stuff.
Yeah.
Other times, maybe there's something really going on with me that I need to talk to somebody about, like losing my pop, and that brought up a lot of childhood stuff. And it just brought up a lot of stuff that I thought I had dealt with in therapy years ago. Apparently not. So anyways, I can't pretend like that's not happening. I need to be willing to lean into it and feel sad and be uncomfortable, whereas back in the day, I would have just put something in my body to not. And I admire and envy and adore people like you that can just have, a drink. I really do. Because I know a lot of people who learned how to take it from a dangerous or just maybe just annoying habit. Some people just get annoyed. They just get tired of being hungover. They get tired of how much they're spending on drinking. It's just very practical, and who've been able to kind of create a balanced relationship with alcohol, right? As opposed to, like you're saying, coming from an empowered place with it. Instead of it telling you what to do, you kind of incorporate it in a way that works for you.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And absolutely. And I think that's what it, because when I look back on that week, I had several opportunities that I, probably could have had, but it was like, it didn't feel right. It felt out of like not negative energy, but like not serving energy.
Right.
You know, and I am always really, I think I shared this, like I always even get a little bit of like not anxiety talking to people who are sober for 10 years that have gone through AA and all that, because I know it's not the same. And I also know that it can't just be like one or the other, because there is so many people out there who are maybe like, I may be more towards Amanda, but I want to be, or I may be more Holly, but I see, or, you know, if we were like on opposite of the
Yeah.
spectrum, and you're like, either way is great. And like, you deserve to define your version of a problem and decide what you want to do with it.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're really showing for your platform too, which I really appreciate as somebody
Right.
who, you know, is gone through AA, totally sober, that you're open to exploring other areas of how to get to sobriety.
Yeah. I just want to remain spacious and like open-minded, not only for myself, but for other people and looking for a solution also, because there's recovery dharma, there's secular meetings, there's She Recovers, there's so many like avenues. And then there are people who can just, you know, change their habits and their relationships with it. And, you know, for someone like me, to experiment with a drink could be catastrophic to my entire life, because I am an alcoholic and an addict. And so there is no controlled drinking. And some people don't like those labels, and that's fine. I get it. I don't really like them either, but like, it is what it is. I don't, it's, you know, when you can get arrested repeatedly and lose jobs and have your home and your relationship with your child and your whole family in jeopardy, and you still won't stop. That is addiction, where you are willing to give up everything and everyone you love to continue to pursue that. Like I said, most people will look at a consequence, even smaller consequences, way before the arrest or the whatever, and just be like, I don't like this. I'm not going to do it anymore. Right? I've quit plenty of things in my life before when I was done with them, you know, I don't like this anymore. I'm not going to do it. Never looked back, you know? And then, you know, alcohol was obviously not one of those things. So yeah, it's different for everybody. And as I sponsor different types of women, I have to be open. I can't tell somebody how to think or what to feel or how to believe or, you know, whatever. So if you're a militant atheist or Muslim or agnostic, or it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You know, all I know is that I'm here to help you if you want to get sober.
That's beautiful. Well, and it's like, it does like alcohol like help or hurt you? Does it serve the woman you want to be, or does it take away from the woman you want to be? Is it aligned with your vision, or is it not? Right. And that is, it's like, we do live in a very, like the gray area, and almost everything makes people real uncomfortable, right? Whether it's like drinking, sexuality, religion, like we like to have things like defined, right? And so in this space, people are like, but wait, like, I don't feel like I'm alcoholic, but I do drink a lot more than I want to. You're like, well, then that in itself maybe means you need to do something different, right? So like having that, but I think it's having these type of conversations and this openness to be like, you don't have to be drinking vodka out of a coffee mug in the morning to have a problem. That's not the only version of a problem.
Right. There's so many ways. And I have met people over the years in different communities where, I mean, from literally living on the streets to living in mansions and flying around in their helicopters and everything in between. And it's like, you know, there's this internal sense of, I am out of alignment. My choices and who I want to be, I just cannot figure out how to make them match up. And, you know, I think that's what you're talking about, where
absolutely.
You just knew that, like, asking yourself those questions, does this line up with who I want to be, you know?
That, and then what you touched on at the very beginning is like the freaking broken promises. Like, even if it is something as little as like, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and go work out, and you don't every week because you drink too much, like those just like erode your self-esteem so much. I'm like, it wasn't like sometimes the big promises, it's those little ones you're like, damn it, like quit quitting on yourself, like stop.
But it's like reinforcing this feeling that you're not enough, you know, that you're not worth that you're not worth the effort or worth the self-love or worth the time. And I think it starts so innocently for so many people as just like a stress reliever. And it's so, not only is it socially acceptable, it's encouraged. My God, if you try to go somewhere and you're not drinking, people lose their minds.
It's like a personal insult to them.
They cannot take it. And I'm like, mind your own business for one thing. But it just shows it, like it illuminates how that is like that's the ticket in, right? To be a part of and to be social and to like belong. And like when you go to work things or happy hours or whatever, you better have a club soda and a lime in your hand. Otherwise, people will absolutely just freak out. And I don't know why. It's so weird. I would never walk up to somebody and be like, you drink? Why? Why do you drink? You know, it's just like so weird. But you get tired of explaining it or saying, I'm on antibiotics right now. I'm training for a race. Like years I had to say all this stupid bullshit because I didn't want people in my business. And now I'm like, do you really want to know the story?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I don't drink. How long do you
sit down while you have your beer and I'm going to have my sparkling water and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'm like, we don't have kids and it's like I'm like child free by choice. Like it's an intentional choice. I do not want kids. And that like is another one that people
Good
are
for
like,
you.
cheers to that.
I hope my kids not watching this.
That's another one that people are like super uncomfortable with. Right. And it's like, I've been asked multiple times, why do you not want kids? I was like, I've never asked one person that, not one, but I'd love to know the answer sometimes, but it just makes, when you do something
you should start asking people, why did you want children? Why do you want kids?
Why do you want kids? What were your reasons? Well, and I think, we both touched on this and it's something, it's like removing alcohol doesn't make your life perfect by any means, right? Like shit still comes up, but like, I know even for my version, like of what I'm doing, like I'm just able to like, I'm more aware, I'm more conscious, I'm able to deal with it. I know what like the truth is when stuff comes up, right? I know like I'm able to handle most things really, or usually it was like drama or it was like tiring or emotional. And it's like, it doesn't make your life perfect, but it makes it a lot easier to manage. Maybe not easier, more clear to manage the things you need to manage.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I have this belief in myself again and this trust in myself again, where my decisions actually do line up with my words and who I actually want to be. And it feels so good to like recognize the person in the mirror and be proud of myself and also have the awareness to where if something is going on with me, I know what to do. I have tools now. I have substitute behaviors. I have other things I can do. And I think that's the part that people don't understand. And I don't understand it myself. And I didn't understand it when I was in my active addiction of like, I've never met an obstacle that I couldn't overcome. And so my ego could not deal with the fact that I could not control this thing. And I almost killed myself trying to prove that I could. And all it was that I was maladjusted to life. I had maladaptive coping skills. I did not know how to deal with stress or sadness or disappointment or fear. I mean, you couldn't have gotten me to admit I was afraid of anything anyways, because, there's a lot of bravado in our family. Just very Texas and very masculine kind of family. So
very Texas.
I had to soften up. I had to be honest. I had to say, I'm scared. I need help. I don't know how to do, and that was really hard. And asking for help is really tough, but you can find other people doing what you're doing in so many places. It doesn't have to be an AA. There's just so many places, but you have to raise your hand and be like, I need help. Or can we go have a coffee? Can you talk to me about how you started to change your drinking habits or, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That asking for help is so key because nobody knows the traumas and the turmoil that we live with, right? Like nobody knows like the doubt, like the times you renegotiate, all the stuff. Like we're usually pretty messed, especially somebody like you, I'm assuming, who like work hurts, get shit done, type A. Like nobody, we hold it in. And so you have to ask for the help because people may not see that you need that help.
Right. And I would never have asked for it because I had too much pride. And to your point, you know, I'm sure during all this stuff you were going through, it looked from the outside like everything was peachy.
Yeah.
And mine did for a while. Toward the end, you could tell by looking at me like that girl is not okay.
Yeah.
But I pulled it off for a while, you know,
Yeah.
and then I just couldn't anymore. And
Yeah.
learning that I needed to figure out how to feel my feelings and communicate and have boundaries and all this crap that I had to go learn in therapy and stuff. I was like, this is really hard. I'd rather just not.
This also feels like not a lot of fun either. So
This all feels very serious and adulty all the damn time. Like, where's the fun? And you know, I can look back at my life too. I have one daughter. I had her when I was 17. I grew up really fast. Like, so maybe I was living out my 18 to 22-year-old years when I was 29 or something. Like maybe I was emotionally stunted and never really stopped or kind of stopped developing emotionally at that point. I don't really know. All I know is that once the floodgate was opened when I was 29, it was like, I mean,
game on.
like I turned into a different person, but I was having fun.
Yeah.
You know, at first.
Yeah. Always at first. And you're like, oh.
Well, then you see the cop lights and you're like, this is not fun.
This is not fun anymore. Well, oh my gosh, I could talk to you for hours, but as we kind of wrap up, I have kind of final 2 questions for you.
Okay.
What, you kind of mentioned asking for help, which sounds like, something that you'd want to share with somebody. If somebody's watching and they're like, they're just like, I think my drinking may be a problem for them. What is, 1 or 2 words of advice or insights you would share with somebody listening?
First of all, people who don't have a problem with alcohol don't ask themselves that question. In AA, we're very careful to never say that someone else has a problem with drinking or that they're an alcoholic or anything. That is none of my business. That is for you to decide for yourself. I don't need anyone telling me that I have a problem. So that's my big thing is, be careful about other people's opinions. But when you're questioning it yourself, that's usually a huge red flag that like something is off. You're not congruent with your real self. So my advice on that would be listen to yourself, really listen to yourself, trust your intuition, trust your gut, and find somebody to talk to, anybody, and whether it's walking into a meeting, or reaching out to somebody from a podcast or whatever, who maybe has a similar story to yours, or maybe who is doing what you wish you could do with your drinking situation. Because there's so many resources out there.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And then, we've talked a little bit about soberish. When you think of being soberish, what does that mean to you?
Soberish?
Soberish.
Something I'm jealous of. I shouldn't say that. I am
that's honest. And
I'm so grateful for my life. Really. I am unbelievably grateful, and I don't want to sound ungrateful.
No, not at all.
But to me, it sounds like balance. Soberish.
Yeah.
It's and that's what I always wanted to do, was to figure out a way to keep it in my life without consequences, without causing negative consequences for myself or other people. And I just never could. But I love the idea of soberish for people who can do it, who can pull it off, because everyone now is sober curious and this and that. And there's all this huge movement. My daughter just turned 30 and like, she doesn't drink. Like a lot of people just are like, meh, there's no upside to it. So I think there's a huge market for that type of messaging, which is balance.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being so honest about it. That makes total, I appreciate
I'm not going to lie. I miss it. I miss being able to check out. Like that's but unfortunately, I think that what I just said implies that I would use it to check out. I'm not going to have a drink to enjoy it. I'm going to use it to get to oblivion, because that's what alcohol is for me. It's a tool to not have to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas your relationship with alcohol is different, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's a beautiful thing, and we should all support each other
Yeah.
no matter what.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. And I think, like you said, we can use it as a tool for many different things, and being aware of what that is and how you use it in your life. And that can change. Obviously it changes.
Totally.
Who knows what I'll be saying in a year from now, like
Yeah.
but I won't go back to what it was. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I won't do that. Amanda, you are such a joy. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I will link to your podcast and how to get a hold of you. If you're watching, thank you so much for tuning in, especially if you are sober or sober-ish or curious on either of those. Please leave a review and share with a friend. And remember, everything you want is on the other side of saying no